Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. You know how much we love it when you send us stuff to explore. And this time you guys really delivered. We got a whole bunch of articles about something called sanity testing in software development.
Oh yeah, definitely a fascinating topic.
So I gotta admit, when I first saw the term sanity testing, I thought, wait a minute, does my software need therapy now too?
Uh-huh. Well, not
But
exactly.
I think I get the basic idea. It's like, okay, imagine you just got this brand new, super fancy espresso machine,
Oh yeah.
all the bells and whistles, you're so excited to try it out. But before you even think about, frothing that perfect latte,
Right.
you got to at least make sure the thing turns on right.
Exactly. That's a really good analogy, actually. Sanity testing is like that quick check, just to make sure that, recent changes you made to the software, like maybe you fixed a bug or added a small feature, you just want to make sure those changes didn't accidentally break something else.
Okay, so it's not about testing the entire system from top to bottom. It's more like a focused check on those specific changes. One of the articles actually defined it as validating changes without disrupting existing features.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And it's super important, especially, in today's world of agile development, where everything moves so fast. Sanity testing helps developers make sure they're not introducing new problems while they're trying to fix old ones.
Right. It's all about efficiency then.
Exactly.
Yes.
Especially when you're working with limited time and resources.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. But here's where I got a little confused. The articles also kept mentioning something called smoke testing. And honestly,
Uh,
I'm having trouble seeing the difference between the two.
yeah, I can see how that would be confusing. They do sound pretty similar, and they both happen early in the development process. But the key difference is this. Smoke testing is like that very first basic test for the entire application. You're just making sure it starts up, the core components are working, you know, kind of like making sure your car engine turns over before you try to drive it anywhere.
Okay, I see.
Sanity testing, on the other hand, comes a little later, after you've made specific changes to the software.
So it's about making sure those specific changes didn't mess anything up.
Exactly.
Okay, I think I'm starting to get it. So sticking with our espresso machine example, a smoke test would be like plugging it in and making sure it turns on. And then sanity testing would be like, making sure that after you descaled it, clean it out, the steam wand still works for frothing milk.
You got it. And one of the articles actually had this really handy table that lays out all the key differences between smoke and sanity testing side by side.
Oh, perfect. Let's break that down for our listeners then.
Mhm.
So looking at the table here, it says that smoke testing focuses on the basic functionality of the entire application, while sanity testing is more about zeroing in on the specific areas that were changed.
Exactly. And another big difference is the timing. Smoke testing happens very early on,
Mm-hmm.
with a brand new build of the software. Kind of like making sure the foundation of a house is solid before you start building the walls. Sanity testing usually comes later,
Yeah.
after you've made minor changes or bug fixes.
And then under depth, it says that smoke testing is more about breadth, like making sure all the essential features are working at least at a basic level, while sanity testing goes deeper but only within the scope of those specific changes.
Right.
And finally, it looks like the ultimate goal of smoke testing is to just determine if the software is stable enough to even move on to further testing, while sanity testing aims to actually validate those specific changes
Yep.
and make sure they haven't introduced any new bugs or issues.
You nailed it. That table is really helpful for clarifying the differences.
It really is. Thanks for pointing it out. So now we know what sanity testing is and how it's different from smoke testing. But when is it most useful in the real world? One article mentioned that it's especially helpful after minor code changes, when time is tight and when you don't need to run a full-blown test suite.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that those scenarios are probably pretty relevant to you, the listener. Imagine you're prepping for a meeting about a new software feature. Or maybe you're trying to quickly understand how a project is progressing. Knowing about sanity testing gives you valuable insight into how developers ensure quality and stability, even when they're working with tight deadlines.
It's a great point. It's like having a behind-the-scenes look at the development process. Okay, so we've covered the what, the why, and the when of sanity testing, but what about the how? What does the actual process look like?
Well, it's actually pretty straightforward. One of the articles broke it down into 4 main steps, and they all revolve around really focusing on those specific changes that were made.
All right, let's walk through them. So step one is identify the scope. So if we're talking about our espresso machine again, we wouldn't bother testing the coffee grinder after descaling, right?
Right.
We'd focus on the parts we actually messed with, like the water tank and the steam wand.
Exactly. You're only concerned with the components. that were directly affected by the change.
Okay, that makes sense. And then step 2 is design your test cases. So basically figuring out what specific actions you need to take to verify that those changes are working correctly.
Right. And those test cases should be really streamlined. You don't need to test everything under the sun, just the essential functions related to the changes.
Okay, got it. And then step 3 is where the rubber meets the road, right? Execute the tests.
Exactly. This is where you actually run those targeted test cases
Yeah.
and look for any unexpected behavior or errors.
And again, efficiency is key here.
Absolutely.
And then finally, step 4 is document everything. Did the test pass? Were there any issues? This documentation is super important for future reference and for tracking the overall health of the software.
Absolutely. Think of it like a medical chart for your software. Clear and detailed documentation helps developers track progress, identify patterns, and make more informed decisions down the line.
Okay, so to recap, our 4 steps are identify the scope, design the tests, execute the tests, and document the results. Seems pretty manageable so far. But the articles also mentioned a bunch of tools that can help with all of this. Some names that popped up were JIRA, Selenium, TestRail, and Postman. Can you give us a quick rundown of what each of those tools brings to the table?
Sure. So JIRA is a popular project management tool that's also really helpful for tracking changes and keeping all your test cases organized. Think of it like a central hub for all your software development activities.
So it's like a digital whiteboard where everyone can see what's happening.
Exactly.
Cool. What about Selenium? What does that one do?
Selenium is a powerful tool for automating tests, especially for web applications. It's like having a robot that can run through your tests for you, which can save you a ton of time and effort.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Okay, what about TestRail?
TestRail is all about managing those test cases we talked about, and then documenting the results in a clear and organized way. It helps you track progress and identify any patterns or recurring issues.
So it's like a super detailed lab notebook for all your testing activities.
You got it.
And then finally, we have Postman.
Right. Postman is specifically designed for testing APIs, which are those connections that allow different software systems to talk to each other.
Ah, okay. So if you're making changes to how your app interacts with other services, like a payment gateway or a social media platform, Postman helps you make sure those connections are still working smoothly.
Exactly. It's a really powerful tool for testing those behind-the-scenes interactions that are essential for so many modern applications.
All right, so to recap, we've got JIRA for project management and tracking, Selenium for automation, TestRail for test case management and documentation, and Postman for API testing. Sounds like a well-equipped toolbox for any development team.
It is. And those are just a few examples. The specific tools a team chooses will depend on a lot of factors, like the type of software they're developing, their workflow, their budget. But the key takeaway here is that the right tools can really streamline that whole sanity testing process and make it faster, more efficient, and less prone to human error.
Makes sense. All right, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about what sanity testing is, how it's different from smoke testing, when it's most useful, and even walk through the 4 main steps of the process. But now I want to dive into some real-world examples. The articles we got included a couple of case studies that really highlight the benefits of sanity testing in action.
Yeah, those are great. Let's take a look at those stories and see how sanity testing played a crucial role in ensuring quality and avoiding some potentially disastrous outcomes.
Those case studies sound really interesting, but before we jump into those, I wanted to touch on something we haven't talked about much yet, the human element.
Right.
We've been talking a lot about processes and tools and all that, but surely there's more to sanity testing than just, following a checklist.
Oh, absolutely. Sanity testing isn't just about, mindlessly running scripts. It requires critical thinking, collaboration, and clear communication. And in fact, one of the articles really emphasized the importance of developers and testers working closely together.
Yeah, that makes sense. After all, the developers are the ones who wrote the code in the first place, so they probably have the best understanding of, how those changes might impact other parts of the system.
Exactly. Developers can offer really valuable insights into potential problem areas and help testers design more effective test cases. It's a continuous conversation, a partnership, rather than just tossing code over the wall and hoping for the best.
Right. It's a team effort, a shared responsibility for making sure the software is top-notch. And that brings us to the other human element to communication. Clear and concise communication is vital throughout that whole process.
Couldn't agree more. Testers need to be able to clearly document their findings and communicate any issues or potential risks to the development team in a way that's understandable and actionable. No one wants to be deciphering cryptic bug reports
Wow.
or drowning in technical jargon.
It's all about getting everyone on the same page, right?
Right.
Making sure everyone understands the problem, the potential impact, and the best way to fix it. So we've got the technical side, the processes, the tools, but that human element is just as important, if not more so. It's about collaboration, communication, and using good judgment to make informed decisions.
You're spot on. And, it makes me think back to that analogy we used earlier, comparing sanity testing to a quick health checkup for your software.
Yeah.
Well, let's take that analogy a step further and
Yeah.
think about the role of a doctor.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
A doctor doesn't just rely on test results, right?
No.
They talk to the patient, observe their symptoms, and use their experience and judgment to make a diagnosis.
Ah, I see where you're going with this. So in a way, testers are like doctors for software. They need to look beyond just the technical data, communicate with the patient, the developers in this case, and use their expertise to assess the overall health of the application.
Exactly. And just like a doctor might order additional tests if they suspect a more serious underlying issue, testers might recommend more comprehensive testing if they uncover potential red flags during sanity testing. It's about using your knowledge and experience to make the best decisions for the health and well-being of your patient, which in this case is the software itself.
That's a fantastic analogy. It really drives home the point that software development isn't just about, cold hard code. There's a human touch, an element of intuition and expertise that plays a crucial role in ensuring quality and success.
Absolutely. It's a beautiful blend of human ingenuity and technological prowess, working together to create something truly remarkable.
It makes you wonder, are there other fields or professions where we could draw parallels to sanity testing?
That's an interesting question. Well, the world of publishing comes to mind. Before a book goes to print, it goes through a rigorous process of checks and revisions. There's proofreading for grammar and spelling, fact-checking to ensure accuracy, and a final review by editors to ensure the overall quality and consistency of the content.
Ah, I see the connection. It's like that final quality control check before a software release goes live, similar to those final checks before a book hits the shelves.
Precisely. Both processes are designed to catch errors and ensure that the final product is polished and ready for its intended audience, just like a book editor might suggest changes or additions. To improve the manuscript, testers might identify areas for improvement in the software based on their findings during sanity testing.
So whether we're talking about healthcare, publishing, or software development, these principles of quality control and continuous improvement are universal. It's fascinating to see how seemingly different fields share these underlying processes and strive for excellence in their own unique ways.
Absolutely. And I think that's a key takeaway for our listener. By drawing these connections and exploring these analogies, we can gain a deeper appreciation for how complex systems work, how quality is ensured, and how these principles apply across different areas of our lives.
It's all about expanding our understanding and making those connections right. Now, we've talked a lot about the present state of sanity testing, but what about the future? Where do you see this field heading in the ever-evolving landscape of software development?
That's a great question. As software development methodologies continue to evolve, particularly with the rise of Agile and DevOps, I think we'll see sanity testing become even more integrated into the development workflow. It'll become less of a separate phase and more of a continuous thread running throughout the entire process.
You mentioned automation earlier. Do you think that will play an even bigger role in sanity testing going forward?
Absolutely. Automation is already key in many testing processes, and I think that trend will only accelerate. As software becomes more complex and release cycles get shorter, automation will be essential for keeping up with the pace of development and ensuring that sanity tests can be run quickly and efficiently.
So instead of manually checking every little change, testers will be able to rely on automated scripts to do a lot of the heavy lifting. That frees up their time to focus on more strategic tasks, like collaborating with developers, analyzing test results, and identifying areas for improvement.
Exactly. And I think we'll also see a greater emphasis on using data and analytics to inform sanity testing. As we collect more data about software usage and performance, we can use that information to identify high-risk areas and design even more targeted and effective test cases.
So it's not just about testing what changed, but also about anticipating potential issues based on past data and user behavior. That's a really interesting development.
It is, and it highlights the growing importance of data-driven decision-making in software development. By combining human expertise with the power of data analysis, We can make sanity testing even more intelligent and effective.
So the future of sanity testing looks bright. We can expect to see more automation, a greater reliance on data, and an even tighter integration with Agile and DevOps
Huh.
methodologies. It's exciting to think about how these advancements will shape the way software is developed and delivered in the years to come.
Precisely. Sanity testing will continue to play a crucial role in ensuring that software is released quickly, efficiently, and with the highest possible quality.
And that's something we can all appreciate, whether we're software developers, testers, or simply users who rely on software every day. It really is amazing to think about how much the software development world is changing
Oh yeah, it's incredible.
and how these testing practices like sanity testing are evolving right alongside it.
Definitely. You know, it's a real testament to the people in this field, their ingenuity and how adaptable they are, constantly pushing the boundaries, finding new and better ways to create reliable software.
Speaking of pushing boundaries, something's been on my mind. We've talked a lot about how important sanity testing is for catching those errors and ensuring quality. But is there a risk of, becoming too reliant on these quick checks? Could it lead to a sense of complacency
Hmm.
where teams might overlook deeper, more systemic issues?
That's a really great question. And yeah, it's a valid concern. We always have to remember that sanity testing, it's just one piece of the puzzle. It's a super valuable tool for that quick validation. But it should never replace more comprehensive testing methods.
So it's about striking that balance, right? Using sanity testing strategically
Yeah.
alongside those other testing approaches
That makes
to
it
make
right.
sure we're not just catching those surface level issues, but also addressing any underlying problems
Hmm.
that might be lurking beneath the surface.
Right, it's like with our health analogies. A quick checkup can catch some obvious issues, but sometimes you need a more thorough examination to really understand what's going on.
That makes perfect sense. It's a good reminder that there's no silver bullet in software development. It's about using the right combination of tools and techniques, and of course, human expertise, to create the best possible product.
Couldn't agree more. It's all a collaborative effort, a continuous process of learning, adapting, and striving for excellence.
Well said. It's been a fascinating journey exploring the world of sanity testing with you.
Absolutely.
We've covered a lot of ground today, from the basic definition and those 4 steps to the human element and even the future of this essential practice.
It's always a pleasure to dive into these topics and have these thought-provoking discussions. And of course, huge thanks to our listener for inspiring this deep dive.
Yes, thank you so much for sending in those articles and prompting this exploration. I hope you found it valuable and insightful.
And remember, this is just the beginning. The world of software development is constantly evolving. There's always something new to learn and explore. So keep asking those questions, keep pushing those boundaries, and keep striving to create amazing software.
That's a perfect note to end on. We encourage you to continue your learning journey. And until next time,